They held a funeral for me. My mother cried without shedding a single tear. My sister read a eulogy I wrote in pain, as if the words were hers. They thought I was gone forever. But as the piano played my favorite song, the church doors opened, and I walked in, alive. I always knew I didn't quite belong. Even as a little girl, I could feel it. The way my mother looked at Emily like she was a glass sculpture, and looked at me like I was the crack that ruined it. Emily, with her soft curls and easy charm, was the daughter everyone wanted. I was the other one, the quiet one, the too sensitive one, the one who asked too many questions and cried at the wrong times. Dad didn't say much. He never did. His silence was worse than Mom's sharp tongue. It was emptier. Like I didn't exist at all. Growing up in the Morgan household meant constantly being compared to grades, to clothes, to posture, to smiles. Emily always won. She always knew how to win, and she knew how to make me lose without lifting a finger. She'd whisper things to Mom behind closed doors, laugh just loud enough that I could hear, and I'd be left wondering what I'd done. Wrong again. By the time I was 28, I had stopped trying to be seen. I moved out. I stopped coming to family holidays, birthdays. I thought maybe the distance would reset something. Maybe they'd miss me. They didn't. Calls stopped. Messages went, unanswered. I didn't even get a Merry Christmas that year. When I sent a gift to Grandma, Emily posted a story calling it a weird anonymous package and laughed about it online. That stung more than I want to admit. So one day, I just left. I packed a bag and bought a one-way ticket out of Ashridge. No note, no goodbye, no explanation. I didn't want them to chase me. I wanted to know what they would do without me. They did nothing. Weeks passed, then months, then a year. I started over. I got therapy. I changed my hair, changed my number, and even went by a different name for a while. I thought I was healing. I thought I was forgetting. But the truth is, you never forget what it's like to be treated like a ghost before you're dead. 3 years later, I got a call from Lena, my best friend from college, the only person I'd, stayed in touch with. "Claire," she said, her voice tight with something between disbelief and rage. "Your family. They're holding a funeral. For you." I laughed. Not because it was funny. Because it was surreal. Like watching someone else's life unravel in real time. She sent me the link. An obituary posted on Emily's profile. My name, my photo, Claire Elizabeth Morgan, born April 17th, died. Abroad. Loved by many, missed by more. Loved by who exactly? I scrolled through the comments. She was so sweet in high school. Sending prayers to the family. Rest in peace, beautiful soul. There was even a post from Mom. Claire struggled with many things, but we always loved her. She's at peace now. Peace, they never once called, never reported me missing, never tried to reach out, even through Lena. And now they wanted to claim they loved me? I didn't feel angry. Not yet. I felt hollow. But the moment I saw the location of the funeral, St. Alara Church, this Sunday at 10 a.m., a strange calm settled over me. They wanted me gone. They wanted a version of the story they could control. They wanted to read my obituary, shed crocodile tears, and walk away with the clean memory of a girl they chose to erase. Fine. Let them have it. Let them bury the ghost of Claire Morgan. I'll be there to make sure she doesn't stay dead. I arrived in Ashridge 2 days before the funeral. I wore a black cap, sunglasses, and an oversized coat. The kind of disguise you'd think was too dramatic in real life. Until you realize that in small towns your face is the news, and mine had just been plastered on every screen as the beloved daughter taken too soon. The Pine Grove Inn hadn't changed. Still smelled like lavender and old wood. I booked a room under Lena's last name, paid in cash. I wasn't ready to be seen, not yet. I spent the next day watching everything unfold like a spectator at my own trial. Emily had gone all out online. She posted a photo carousel of us as children, her in the center, me off to the side, cropped in half in one. The caption read, "I lost my sister, my best friend, Life will never be the same. Rest easy, Claire. I almost choked on my coffee. Best friend, huh? This from the girl who once told an entire dinner party that I'd forged my college application. From the girl who took credit for my nonprofit project in high school and smiled while I cried in the bathroom. But there she was, posing in a black dress in front of St. Alara Church like it was her wedding day. Like this was some performance. And she was the tragic lead. Mom's post came next, a simple photo of a lit candle. Claire struggled her whole life, but we loved her. We always did. Flashback. I'm 16. Sitting on the kitchen floor, shaking after a panic attack because Emily accidentally spilled orange juice on my laptop the night before finals. Mom standing over me with crossed, "Andy, you need to toughen up. Life doesn't hand out rewards for being fragile." Another flash. I'm 25, asking if I can borrow a little money after a layoff. Her response? Maybe if you made better life choices. They didn't love me. They endured me. Or worse, they erased me. That night, Lena came by and handed me a USB drive. "Got it," she whispered. "They're using the speech." My stomach turned. Years ago, when I was still trying to hold things together, I wrote a letter. A kind of goodbye, I guess. Not to die, but to disappear. I gave it to Lena in case something ever happened, in case they twisted the story, in case they pretended they cared. It turns out, they found it. Or maybe Lena had shared it once in desperation. I didn't ask. All I knew was that it would be read aloud by a pastor I barely remembered, to a room full of people who'd forgotten I ever existed. I opened the file. I was always the shadow, the noise in the background, the thing that made everything uncomfortable. Maybe I was too much, or not enough. Maybe both. If I ever disappear, just know, it was never sudden. I've been fading for years. I stared at the screen. My words, my heartbreak. And now they'd read them with solemn faces and soft music in the background, like this was a tragedy that happened to them, not because of them. I couldn't stop watching. That evening, Emily went live, dressed in soft black silk, candlelit room, voice trembling. Claire was sensitive, but strong in her own way. I wish I'd told her more often how much I admired that. Cut to a flashback. Me, 22. In tears because Emily told my ex that I was emotionally unstable, so he'd dump me. She smiled at me after and said, "Just doing you a favor, sis." Back to the live stream. Tears. A pause. A look at the camera. She was my sister, my other half. I wanted to throw the laptop. They weren't mourning me. They were sanitizing me, making me easier to swallow now that I couldn't speak for myself. Only I could, and I would. St. Alara stood quiet and still that morning, like it always had. White stone, arched windows, the kind of place that made anything feel holy, even lies. I stood just outside the back doors, listening to muffled voices behind the heavy wooden panels. Lena was parked 3 blocks away with her phone ready. I didn't need her to record it. I just needed to know someone was watching, someone who actually saw me. Inside, the ceremony had started. The casket was closed. Of course, there was nothing inside, just a stand-in for a life they never wanted to understand. I waited as the eulogy played out like a rehearsed theater piece. Mom was crying, not real sobs, but the kind where only her voice cracked while her eyes stayed dry. She always struggled, she said, just like she'd typed. But we loved her. Deeply. Lies in velvet packaging. Then Emily stepped up to the mic. She wore a black fascinator and thin heels like she was channeling some Lifetime drama. I could almost see her reflection through the stained glass. She looked beautiful. She always did. But her mouth never matched her heart. She was misunderstood, she whispered. But her spirit was light. And just like that, the pianist placed their fingers on the keys. A soft, familiar melody filled the church. My favorite song, they called it. The one Emily used to mock me for loving. Too slow, too dramatic, too weird. It was time. I placed one gloved hand on the worn brass handle and pushed. The back doors of St. Alara creaked open, slow and deliberate, like something out of a dream or a nightmare. Heads turned. The pianist froze. My heels clicked against the stone floor with a rhythm more confident than I felt. But I didn't stop. Not for the whispers, not for the gasps. Grandma Agnes turned her head and went pale. Her hands trembled, and within seconds she slid off the pew in a faint. The woman next to her screamed. Emily dropped her phone. It clattered to the floor and echoed like thunder. Mom's mouth opened, but no sound came out. The pastor took a step back from the podium. We were told you were gone, he stammered. I stopped halfway down the aisle, letting the light from the windows catch on the edge of my black coat. Well, I said, voice steady, eyes locked on my mother. I was. Then I smiled. But I'm not anymore. You could feel it in the room, the way reality bent around shock, the way guilt rises like steam from a pot when the lid is yanked off. Nobody moved. Nobody blinked. I reached into my bag and pulled out a flash drive. Since you're already gathered to honor my memory, I said, I thought it'd be nice to share a few things you conveniently left out. The pastor looked to my mother, confused. Judith Morgan, usually quick with words, sat frozen, eyes wide, lips trembling, hands clenched in her lap like she was trying not to crumble. Emily stood up finally, face white. Claire, what is this? I tilted my head. You tell me. You've all had 3 years to write your version of the story. Now it's my turn. The projector screen behind the pulpit blinked on. Lena had accessed it remotely, just like we planned. I plugged in the drive and hit play. The screen flickered to life behind the altar, and the church fell into stunned silence. I stepped aside and let the truth speak for itself. The first video was grainy, recorded through a slightly cracked phone screen, but the voices were clear. If we declare her legally dead, the life insurance kicks in, Emily said, her voice sharp but calm. Are you sure it'll work? Mom replied. She's been gone for years. No contact. It's not like she's coming back. A gasp echoed from the back of the room. Click next, a screen recording of an email chain titled Claire's Assets Breakdown. From Emily Morgan. To Judith Morgan, Richard Morgan. Subject, dividing Claire's stuff. I'll take the apartment. Mom gets the jewelry. Dad can deal with her student accounts. We can donate the rest. Click. A scanned document appeared. A blurry signature at the bottom. Last will and testament of Claire Morgan only. I never wrote a will, and the signature? Not even close. Click. Photos of the apartment I once lived in. Cleared out, renovated, and sold. The real estate agent's post read, Quick flip, inherited property, sold in 3 days. Click. A bank transfer receipt. $112,000 wired to Emily's account. Labeled, life insurance payout. Click. The church erupted. People whispered, cried, looked away. Some stood to leave. The pianist buried her face in her hands. A woman near the front shook her head, muttering, Dear God. I stepped forward again, my voice clear but sharp. You didn't just abandon me. You erased me. Mom finally stood trembling, her voice shrill. We thought you were gone forever, Claire. What were we supposed to do? Sit and wait forever? We had no choice. I tilted my head. No, you had a choice. You just made the wrong one. The doors creaked open again. This time it wasn't me walking through. It was my lawyer, Naomi Blackwell, heels clicking, suit pressed, expression like stone, followed by 2 uniformed officers. Naomi approached the pulpit like it was her. Courtroom. By the authority of Ashridge County, we're serving arrest warrants for fraud, forgery, and identity theft, she announced. Judith's face drained of color. Emily stepped back, stammering. This isn't real. She's lying. Naomi held up a folder. We have financial records, recorded conversations, and 3 years of missing person inaction. Claire never declared herself dead. You did. Dad stood finally, fists clenched. You're ruining this family. I looked at him, really looked at him. For the first time in years, you ruined it the day you sold your daughter's name like it was a business asset. The officers approached slowly. Emily tried to slip out, but one officer gently blocked her path. Judith sobbed, loudly now, messily, in a way that no longer seemed performative but panicked. I watched it all from the front pew. I didn't cry. I didn't shout. I just breathed. For the first time in a long time, I felt air fill every inch of me. Naomi turned to me. You still want to press charges? I looked around the church, the place they tried to bury my memory, the place I chose to rise instead. Yes, I said. Let them feel what it's like to be erased. As the cuffs clicked around their wrists and the officers began their quiet exit, I stood and gathered my coat. The projector screen faded to black, but the silence they left behind was louder than anything they'd ever said to me. I walked out of the church before the sirens faded. Behind me, voices rose, not in grief, but in panic, shouting, chairs scraping the floor, the rustle of evidence being gathered, Emily's shriek cutting through it all. She set us up. I didn't flinch. The sunlight outside felt different now, sharper, cleaner. I stood on the steps of St. Alara with my coat draped over one arm, and for the first time in years. I felt tall, not heavier, not bitter, just whole. I didn't cry, I didn't need to. They didn't apologize. Of course they didn't. Because apologies only come from people who believe they did something wrong. And people like them, they rewrite reality so thoroughly they can't see past their own version of it. But that wasn't my job anymore, fixing their stories, making their guilt make sense. That burden died the moment I walked through those church doors, and I didn't look back. Later that evening, I stood in front of my own headstone, Claire Elizabeth Morgan, April 17th, 1991, August 3rd, 2020. A gentle soul gone too soon. It was surrounded by pink lilies, my least favorite flower. There was a laminated photo tucked into the stone, one Emily had posted online. The same one where she had cropped me halfway out and only remembered to add me back in after commenters asked why the dead sister wasn't in any of the pictures. The irony burned in the back of my throat. I knelt down in front of the grave. It was peaceful out here. Quiet. No performances, no microphones, just truth and dirt and stone. I took the folded piece of paper from my coat pocket, the one I'd written in my hotel room, alone the night before the funeral. I placed it under the flowers, smoothed the edges, and read the words out loud. You buried the old me, but I came back stronger. Rest in peace to the girl who needed your love. I stood up, and I left her there. The version of me who begged for scraps of affection, who cried behind doors, who twisted herself into something smaller so others could feel bigger. She was gone now, and I wasn't mourning her. I was releasing her. My car waited by the tree line. I slid into the driver's seat, started the engine, and rolled down the window just enough to feel the spring breeze against my skin. Naomi had already filed the civil suit. The state would handle the criminal charges. The headlines were coming. So were the consequences. But none of that was why I smiled as I pulled onto the open road. I smiled because I had taken back the one thing they were most afraid I'd reclaim. My voice. Not the loudest, not the prettiest, but mine. I drove away from Ashridge not to escape, but to continue. Not to start over, but to start anew. Not as the daughter they buried, but as the woman who made sure they'd never forget she lived.